West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Chef Justice Putnam. Netrootsradio.com.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
Joining us now, NBC News investigations correspondent Tom Winter and former acting Solicitor General, now an MSNBC legal analyst, Neil Katyal. And Jonathan Lemire is still with us as well. Neil, if I could just start with you, it feels like the word that really stuck out there in the Justice Department response was criminal. What can a reasonable person deduce so far about what the search indicates and what they would have to conduct a search like that?
So I think, Micah, that the Justice Department's filing yesterday was absolutely expected. When I was at the department, we would resist any calls like this to release information in an active investigation. So none of this is surprising. What was surprising to me is one thing that the Justice Department said at page 8 of their filing, which is we need to keep this affidavit sealed because witnesses would be compromised and novel investigative techniques might be disclosed. What that suggests to me is that they do have a person or persons on the inside at Mar-a-Lago who are telling the FBI information about how Trump has handled these documents. It also might mean there are some technical monitoring capabilities, and the like. And so if you're Donald Trump right now, that's really going to cause you a lot more worry. I mean, he's already pathologically worried, kind of like a mob boss, about people flipping on him. But now he's got to worry even more. And given his kind of tortured relationship to truth, honesty, he's got to fear everything he has said to every person now. Because as Joe was saying a moment ago, it's not just what's going on at Mar-a-Lago and that investigation and who's at Mar-a-Lago who might be flipping on him. It's also Rudy Giuliani, who's facing a criminal indictment in Georgia and will be a ripe target to flip on Trump. There's Alan Weisselberg, who's evidently going to plead guilty this week. This is Trump's CFO of the Trump Organization. He said he won't cooperate, but pleading guilty while the Trump Organization is facing a criminal trial on the very same issues in October basically dooms that trial as well. So, there's all of these different fronts. And with all of it, Donald Trump is saying overnight, as you were saying a moment ago, transparency, release the affidavit. I mean, give me a break. Transparency, we've been asking ever since the search, what in the world, Donald Trump, are you doing with these documents at Mar-a-Lago, these highly classified documents? Why do you need electronic intercepts and information on the French president? We've heard nothing in response. So transparency begins there.
So, Tom, what can we read into what we do know? We don't know specifically what's in these documents. We know what kind of documents they are because that was laid out by the Department of Justice. But if you are Donald Trump or you're in the inner circle of those people around him, what are you concerned about right now as you've just watched the pattern and the behavior of justice here?
Right. A couple of different things. First off, to Neil's point, with respect to transparency, the president's attorney has the affidavit. They could potentially release that if they wanted to or put that information out there. I'm sure the Justice Department wouldn't be happy about it, but perhaps the president's attorneys think that that's a bad idea to put information out. I mean, it reads like a criminal complaint. They have a wide latitude in that search warrant to put a lot of information in there that can be very damning for the target of that search. And let's be clear, the target of that search 100% is the former president of the United States. I think another interesting thing that was included in that document is they talked about a need for grand jury secrecy. They said Federal Rules of Criminal Procedure 6E, which whenever we see that as reporters, we say, oh, so a grand jury is definitely hearing information. That's not a complete surprise, Willie, because we know that a grand jury subpoena was issued previously in the course of looking into these documents. But I think when you look at it, the idea that the FBI went as an errand boy for the National Archives, if that idea was still alive, is now cold, dead, and buried after yesterday's court filing. It is very clear that this is a serious ongoing investigation, that people are speaking, and I think more details about that will come out in the course of the next couple of days. But I think it's interesting when you look at the totality of this investigation. Clearly, they think it's very serious. Jay Bratt, who's the chief of the counterintelligence and export section of the Department of Justice, signed this court filing yesterday. So clearly, this has gone to the top of the Justice Department for people that will look into counterintelligence matters, the secrets of the United States. I think there's a lot of information in there that points to the fact that this is quite a serious ongoing investigation.
And so, Neil, you have a criminal investigation into the documents, and of course, Eric Hirschman being subpoenaed before a grand jury. What does that grand jury likely look like, and what's it pertaining to most likely?
So we don't know exactly. We know that there are the grand jury is looking into two different things: the fake electors plot, as well as the Capitol attack. And the question that we don't know is, who are they looking at in response to these investigations? We know Jeff Clark is the guy, the environmental lawyer who you're referring to a moment ago, Mr. Oil Spill, is part of that. He was part of this whole plot to basically do on January 6th to throw out the vote. But we haven't totally know who else. My suspicion has always been that Donald Trump is part of that grand jury investigation. After all, the grand jury has subpoenaed Pat Cipollone and Patrick Philbin, who were President Trump's two top lawyers at the White House. And I don't think you take that step just to get some mere information. And now with Alan Hirschman also being called, Hirschman knows a lot about the January 6th plot. He was central to the Jeffrey Clark saga, so he has a lot of information. And as you might recall from the way he testified in the Hill, he is really quite an incredible addition. He gives basically reality TV confessionals. Congressional hearings are normally like a boring episode of Law and Order, but not when Eric Hirschman's involved. So I think it'll make for interesting grand jury proceedings. The one last thing I just wanted to say, Tom Winter, I think said, unless he has information I don't believe that Donald Trump's attorneys or Donald Trump has access to the affidavit in the search at Mar-a-Lago. They just have the warrant itself, and now we all do because it's been released.
Tom, so we talked about possible threats here, and one of them, there's grave concern that these FBI agents' names were released because of the warrant put out on Truth Social by someone close to President Trump or perhaps Trump himself. And we know that coincides with a real rise in violent rhetoric towards FBI agents across the country. We had the incident in Cincinnati last week, an arrest in Pennsylvania. Here in Washington, the FBI headquarters is surrounded by additional layers of security that went up in recent days. Tell us what latest your sources are saying about how concerned they are there could be more retaliatory strikes at the FBI, fueled by what we're hearing from the former president and his allies.
Sure. And just to clear up Neil's point, he is correct with respect to the affidavit itself. In other words, where this investigation is going and what they've developed, that is something that Trump's attorneys don't have. It certainly helps the case of this news organization and many others that have argued for the release of this affidavit that the president is now saying he agrees with it. But ultimately, it's not up to him. It is up to the judge, and it is up, obviously, the Justice Department has a huge saying in that. With respect to agents and with respect to the FBI, I think when you look at it and having I was on vacation last week, so obviously a significant amount of my phone calls yesterday were to people in federal law enforcement, just generally, just to see what's going on in specific cases, not necessarily this one. But I think everybody feels this sense that there is somebody who is the former president of the United States who commands a very loyal audience, the audience that he has. Just look at January 6th if you have any questions about that. And so I think when you look at the potential for threats with respect to federal law enforcement, it is significant to see the types of information that's gone out. There was a person that was arrested yesterday for making threats to the FBI. We obviously had the incident in Cincinnati last week where that individual died, but tried to commit an act of violence on that field office there. So when you look at this, it is something that is very real. I think it's something that is very significant. I think it's something that they're closely paying attention to. Separately, we were talking about Giuliani earlier and this idea of a target. It does mean something a little bit different in Georgia. It's not quite the same significance as if he was named a target on the federal level with respect to him potentially turning against former President Trump. I think that possibility at this point is low. The reason why is his attorney yesterday, Robert Costello, who represents Giuliani, told me it was, quote, delusional that he would speak about the conversations between Giuliani and the former president, that those would be protected by attorney-client privilege. Obviously, Giuliani is somebody who made it very clear was the president's personal attorney and vice versa. So I think the possibility of him talking about what I'm sure Georgia investigators are really interested in, which is what did the president tell you, Mr. Giuliani? I think the idea of that coming out in grand jury testimony as soon as tomorrow is probably a little remote.
It is Wednesday, the 17th of August of 2022, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner the English Bulldog is our snoozing sous chef. And our daily special is Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. Will no one rid us of these meddlesome priests? Will no one? Do we have to do it ourselves? Oh my God, I guess we gotta. Oh, and for those of you who might be offended because of the, I don't know, untoward implications of a Smothered Benedict, it's not what you really think. It's just truly a lovely, fluffy egg dish with an equally lovely hollandaise sauce smothering it. Yeah. And if we could get rid of a few pastors along with the priests, that would be good too, wouldn't it? Mm-hmm. Alrighty. Hey, what's going on? oh, that's right. There's a violent fascist takeover of the United States, and part of that insurgency is taking over the ballot box. And I literally mean taking over the ballot box. There's no metaphor about it. It is literally taking over the ballot box. And they got guns when they do it, too. Isn't that weird? Second Amendment right. Alrighty. This lady in Wyoming who beat the other lady, the Cheney lady, who before Trump was considered to be an off-the-wall Looney Tunes. Think about that. Liz Cheney is considered to be normal, sedate, rational, compared to the chaos of Donald Trump and that whole movement. So this lady at Hagedorn, what's her name? Hegman. She's a lawyer. I don't understand. I pursued the law briefly and I decided, I don't know, maybe I'm not a litigator. I could do a lot of research, but I don't know if I could litigate properly. Look at me. I'm going to go in there and convince a jury? Yeah, you bet. So, apparently I could have pursued it and gotten on TV. I mean, for a paying gig. Don't even be a lawyer anymore. You're on TV as a legal expert. Maybe that's what she's looking for. Anyway, this lady purports that coal is clean energy and we need to use more of it. Apparently, she's never had black lung in her family. You don't even need to work in the coal mine to get black lung. Jeez. Tailings. How about tailings in Wyoming? Mm-hmm. I like to see that in your, I don't know, what do they have out there? Just a cup of joe. cup of coffee. Then they're going to have a latte. Not in Wyoming, apparently. Crudité? It does kind of crack me up that Oz is considered to be out of touch because he used the term crudité. And then the store is so knowledgeable about crudité, they serve it with a salsa. What the hell? On the other hand, maybe I don't know what they call salsa. It could be something entirely different. Mayonnaise and diced tomatoes stirred up. Maybe that's what they mean by salsa. I don't know. You don't serve salsa in a veggie platter anyway. Please. Salsa goes with the chips. And then you have like a dip. A dip for the veggie platter or the crudité. I always like doing a sun-dried tomato dip. That's what I like to do. But instead of using sour cream, I used tofu. Processed it all up. No one knew the difference. They just thought it was great. You add a little bit more oil from the sun-dried tomatoes. You do that. And people loved it. And the meat and potatoes crowd, until I told them it was tofu, just raved. This is one of the best dips I've ever had. You tell them it's tofu, and they think their balls are going to shrink. Talk about, I don't know, cultural determination. I don't know. Once again, why did Beto continue? I mean, NPR continues to drag Beto for calling the motherfucker a motherfucker who laughed about kids' bodies getting liquefied from the inside out, or from the inside. I don't know about out. Decapitated. This motherfucker laughed about it, and NPR is dragging Beto for calling the motherfucker a motherfucker. They're not saying anything about Carrie Lake and her big dick energy speech to a bunch of kids. I think the big dick energy in the Republican Party is already mushroomed, so to speak. So the only way to move on is punch the Nazis. All right? This Lady Hagedorn, I love how already she's the presumptive representative from Wyoming, not even considering the fact that there are some Democrats running. Yeah, you could point out that Wyoming specifically, or in particular, Democratic turnout for the primary was minuscule. But the Republican side went through the roof in terms of turnout, and a lot of it had to do with people, Democrats, registering as Republicans to vote for Lynn Cheney. I don't know, I'm just saying. I don't know. Before Trump, she was the Looney Tune. I guess, what are we going to do? They keep moving the goalposts on us, and then they call us extreme because, I don't know, we want to just have a stoic attitude about life. Oh my God, we're so extreme. We don't want to be stoics. But compared to them, maybe. Oh, those people use reason and logic to rule the world. They're evil. They're the army of Satan. That's what Kinzinger's family, 11 members of his family, called him. He joined the army of Satan by I don't know. This brainwashing does kind of crack me up, On the other hand, if they believe literally the Jesus story, all the Jesus story is, it's simply love thy neighbor. Good works good thoughts only mean something when you put good works with it. Praying for something's not enough. You actually got to work for it. That kind of attitude. The least of these, right? The least of these we help. The Jesus story is simple. But they want to take literally the Jesus story as like these things actually happen, disregarding the fact, I know they always say that the Bible was written by the hand of the Spirit, and the Spirit moved the hand, and yeah, give me a break. Like human frailty was never involved in the idea of volition and all of that, so it doesn't matter whether the Spirit of God guided the hand of those who were writing the Bibles. What does matter is that that whole tome began to be, well, shall we say, constructed a full 70 years after the events that supposedly took place. I just don't know. I don't know. If you want to go ahead and stake your whole belief system upon, Dante's Inferno? Apparently they have, because that's what they think the apocalypse is in Revelations. All that stuff about the horsemen and everything. I mean, Dante took that and gave the levels of hell and purgatory and all of that, and somehow a whole religion was constructed out of it. Jim Morrison said, you could either start a religion, plan a murder, or start a religion. They're both the same. That's why on Wednesdays, it's Smothered Benedict Wednesdays for all of its metaphorical meaning. Yes. All right. So Trump's spinning his lies using secret documents as leverage. Can you believe that? The supposed former president of the United States is using the United States secrets against it? Yeah, that's a thug mafia don for you, huh? Huh? Well, we probably have wasted enough time just meandering at the beginning, as the way we are wont to do. Crudité. It still cracks me up. Wait until they start hearing about mise en place. Boy, we're going to be in big trouble then, aren't we? Oh, my God. Okay, what's on the rest of the menu as we pursue this fabulous Smothered Benedict Wednesdays, which I must remind folks also, we are quite busy this week, and we'll have some sort of show. Maybe we might even have a whole show for you tomorrow. But it's a busy day tomorrow for my mom's upcoming hip replacement surgery. And apparently there's lots to do for that sort of thing. Who knew? Well, I have mentioned this before. My mom has been in some terrible agony because of abject deterioration of that structure there. Ouch. And when I saw the x-rays of it, the last ones, getting her ready for this, it gave me a much better appreciation about how my mom's really been gutting it out, literally, because I don't know if I could take the amount of agony and pain that would generate down in that part of her body. Poor lady. Oh, my God. So this is going to be, we're looking forward to some relief of that. And because of that, we have to abbreviate our lifestyle in the interim, and we will. So just giving you a heads up, next few weeks could be rather hectic around here. We may have to abbreviate or not. We'll see how it goes. All right, what's on the menu here as we begin here in the Bistro Cafe part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy? The IRS says teachers can now deduct more for out-of-pocket expenses for the classroom. Well, that's good. Why do they even have to spend for it anyway? I don't know. Immigration advocates sued LexisNexis over personal data sold to ICE. Thank you, guys. And the special board appointed by President Joe Biden to intervene in stalled railroad contract talks suggested that 115,000 rail workers should get 24% raises and thousands of dollars in bonuses. This is a guy who rides the rails. He knows what he's talking about. Good guy. After the break, we move to the chef's table, where China's worst heat wave in 6 decades has dried up reservoirs used to generate hydropower. Yeah, that's happening here too. And Russia's defense ministry warned Britain against a planned spy plane flight over Russian territory. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com. To the right of the page is the chat room link. And the chat room, of course, is monitored by the Kelly Lincoln, who will be at Netroots Nation 22 in Pittsburgh this weekend. In fact, I think she probably arrives tomorrow at some point. Panel discussions begin, I know. And so we'll look forward to some great interviews and other reportage from Netroots Nation 22 by Kelly Lincoln on site, in person, after 2 years of all of us being sequestered away. So stay tuned for that. Across the page from that chat room link near the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com is a link to our Patreon page. And if you could afford an espresso-type coffee drink and send those funds our way once a month, it helps us pay our bills, which are ever increasing. Imagine that, yes. But your help has allowed us to continue this powerhouse of resistance over 11 plus years. Continuous 24/7, 365 resistance radio, by the way. So thank you for your generosity. And I just got to say, we need it. We need your generosity. Thank you. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio on Twitter, you can do so at Netroots Radio. Tom takes care of that. Thanks, Tom. Follow me on Twitter at Justice Putnam. I incidentally post the show notes and links diary on Daily Co's 10 minutes before showtime. And you can access those show notes and links, diary links, by going to my Twitter feed. And there it is. Yeah, follow me at Justice Putnam. There, I'm just trying to say that. You can also follow the show on Twitter at Cookbook West. Pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes, etc., etc., etc. Don't forget the deep archive of the internet of the Netroots Radio Library can be found on the Internet Archive at archive.org. Yeah, some of the disjointedness if you haven't figured it out already, the disjointed nature of today's show is, at least in the more ad-lib part, is because of a profound lack of sleep. I mentioned taking care of my mom, but I got to take care of an elderly dog, too. A little, I call it a rat terrier, but, she's a Yorkshire. Thank you so much. But no, she's cute. But she's quite old and she needs some help. And look, I can't turn my back on the little thing. Jeez, we want her to have a quality of life. That's what we talk about. But sometimes it takes a bit of energy to rouse yourself out of a sound sleep. All right. I thought we were supposed to train him to go by our schedule. What happened? Yeah, I'll tell you what happened. Compassion for another living being. I guess that's where we're stuck, isn't it? Yes, indeed. Speaking of which, let us look at this first offering here in the Bistro. You'll figure out the connection here in a moment. Here in the Bistro Cafe part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. It comes out of the Oregonian. And who am I? And it is, Leata Gore out of the Oregonian. The Internal Revenue Service has changed the amount teachers can deduct for out-of-pocket classroom expenses. For tax years 2012 through 2021, the limit teachers could deduct for out-of-pocket classroom expenses for things like books, materials, and other educational supplies was $250 per year. For 2022, that amount has been raised to a maximum of $300 and will increase in $50 increments in future years based on inflation. Eligible educators will be able to deduct up to $300 on qualifying expenses. Married couples where both are eligible educators can claim up to $600, but the $300 per spouse limit remains. Educators can claim up to $300 even if they take the standard deduction, the IRS said. Eligible educators include anyone who is a kindergarten through grade 12 teacher, instructor, counselor, principal, or aide in a school for at least 900 hours during the school year. Both public and private school educators qualify. What is deductible? Well, we'll tell you. Books, supplies, and other materials used in the classroom. Equipment, including computer equipment, software, and services. COVID-19 protective items to stop the spread of the disease in the classroom. This includes face masks, disinfectants for use against COVID-19, hand soap, hand sanitizer, disposable gloves, tape, paint, or chalk to guide social distancing, physical barriers such as plexiglass, air purifiers, and other items recommended by the CDC. Professional development courses related to the curriculum they teach or the students they teach, but the IRS cautions that for these expenses it may be more beneficial to claim another educational tax benefit, especially the lifetime learning credit. And you'll have to look that up. Qualified expenses don't include the cost of homeschooling or non-athletic supplies for courses in health or physical education. The IRS also reminds educators to keep good records, including receipts, canceled checks, and other documentation. Kathleen Foodie of the Associated Press brings us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. Data broker LexisNexis Risk Solutions violated Illinois law by collecting and combining extensive personal information and selling it to third parties, including federal immigration authorities, according to a lawsuit filed yesterday, Tuesday, by immigration advocates. The result is a grave threat to civil liberties, the activists and two immigration advocacy groups argued. The lawsuit asks a Cook County judge to prevent the data broker from selling personal information without consent. The complaint also notes that LexisNexis AccuRent product, which is sold to law enforcement, incorporates information that is not publicly available, including correctional bookings, vehicle collision records, and license plate reader databases. A representative for Georgia-based LexisNexis Risk Solutions did not immediately reply to a request for comment shortly after the lawsuit was filed. Immigration advocates have called attention to a $22 million contract between ICE and LexisNexis for that product, revealed in the results of a Freedom of Information Act request. They argue it poses a particular risk to activists and immigrants. Sehal Zoda, legal director at Just Futures Law and an attorney on the lawsuit, said the data broker makes it possible for ICE to instantly access sensitive personal data, all without warrants, subpoenas, any privacy safeguards, or any show of reasonableness. There is a critical difference between the gathering of bits of personal information through publicly available resources and the collection of information through an encyclopedic dossier that compiles all of the records, including ones that are not publicly available, into one easily accessible and computerized profile, the complaint said. And I'm sure the cops and ICE just threw up their hands and said, well, yeah. Funk of the Associated Press brings us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. The special board appointed by President Joe Biden to intervene in stalled railroad contract talks suggested yesterday, Tuesday, that 115,000 rail workers should get 24% raises and thousands of dollars in bonuses as part of a new agreement to avert a strike. Railroads and unions will use those recommendations as the basis for a new round of negotiations over the next month. It remains to be seen, however, whether railroads will agree to the higher wages or find ways to address union concerns about working conditions. If the two sides cannot agree on a new deal by mid-September, federal law would allow a strike or lockout, but Congress is likely to intervene before then to keep the supply chain moving. A railroad strike could devastate businesses that rely on Union Pacific, BNSF, Norfolk Southern, CSX, and other major freight railroads to deliver raw materials and ship their products. In past national rail labor disputes, lawmakers have voted to impose terms on the railroads before workers could strike. A White House official said Biden is optimistic the report will provide a good framework for successful negotiations because avoiding a rail shutdown is in the nation's interests. The railroads entered the Presidential Emergency Board process a month ago, far apart from the 12 unions taking part. The unions have been seeking a 31% raise over the 5 years of the deal, while the railroads were only offering 17% in compounded raises. The unions also did not want to see the cost of their health care coverage go up in a new contract. Now, the board is recommending 24% wage increases and $5,000 in bonus payments over the life of the contract, while adding one additional paid day off each year. The report also recommends keeping the same basic health insurance plan, but having employees take on a larger share of the cost through higher monthly premiums. All right, let's get to our break, and when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world, and we will finish up with the stories that we have curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Gabby Nicole. This week, Bullet Train Off the Rails. Director David Leitch has added another successful action-packed film to his repertoire. We follow Brad Pitt as an unlucky hitman/courier, codenamed Ladybug, in his first mission back from a soul-searching break. His mission? To recover a briefcase. Seems simple enough, right? But not so much. The other passengers include 2 other hitmen, a mob boss's son, a father seeking revenge for his son, a scheming girl, a Mexican gangster, and a venomous snake. Each character plays a role in the advancement of Ladybug's understanding of the situation, and you can relate to his confusion as the action unfolds. Leitch uses a Tarantino-esque storytelling method, similar to Pulp Fiction, where the characters are intertwined through their criminal pursuits. Imagine the characters in that classic, all trapped on a train, speeding through Japan. Brian Tyree Henry and Aaron Taylor Johnson's performances of Lemon and Tangerine, respectively, are particularly charming. You can't help but root for them. They bring both aggression and humor to the film that pair well with Brad Pitt's quips throughout. The most pleasantly surprising casting choice, though, is Joey King as the prince. Her character is compelling as her motives remain a mystery for most of the film. Sandra Bullock only has a few minutes of screen time, but her voice as Ladybug's handler provides an anchor to the outside world as the action on the train descends into chaos. Action film fans will love this one, as the twists keep you on the edge of your seat, but I wouldn't recommend it for the squeamish. There's virtually constant violence where protagonists and bad guys alike succumb to gruesome, bloody, if creative deaths. And you shouldn't get too attached to any one character because the action on board the bullet train leaves few survivors. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Gabby Nicole. Catch up with us at take2moviereview.com and feed us back on our channel on YouTube.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
Hey kids and parents, it's back to school time. As you shop for school supplies and get ready for class, make sure you have emergency plans in place. Did you know that emergency preparedness plays a major role in school life? Throughout the year, schools actively prepare for natural disasters, outbreaks, and other emergency situations. Students and parents need to be aware and learn what to do during an emergency. Every family should build an emergency kit, make a family disaster plan, and be informed about events that could affect their community. Parents, take a few extra steps to help children be prepared. Make sure they know the full name, address, and phone numbers of parents or guardians. In our high-tech world of cell phones, memorizing emergency phone numbers is very important. Include a copy of this information in their backpack. Other items to keep in their backpack include water and non-perishable snacks, a pocket-sized first aid kit, a whistle to alert others for help, and a list of allergies, medical conditions, and medications. Make sure their school and teacher have a copy, too. Be familiar with different routes and ways to travel home, like walking, taking the bus, or riding home with another student who lives nearby. Establish a secret code word with your child and whoever takes them home from school to protect against an unauthorized person picking them up. This list is a great starting point to prepare your student for the upcoming school year. Customize these steps to fit your child's capabilities and needs. Ask school administrators and teachers about emergency preparedness plans so you know what steps they are taking to keep your child safe. Many schools have guidelines on how to shelter in place during natural disasters, how to secure classrooms during an emergency lockdown, and how to teach preparedness curriculum to students. Remember, emergency preparedness is important for everyone. Children who are prepared are more confident during stressful emergency situations. By following preparedness guidelines, parents, children, and school staff can improve their safety and peace of mind. For more information on school emergency preparedness, visit cdc.gov/children/schools. To learn more about disasters and emergency preparedness, follow @CDC Emergency on Twitter or visit emergency.cdc.gov. So, let's get prepared. Have a great school year.
For the most accurate health information, visit www.cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
This is an important message from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. After a storm or disaster, it's important to eat only safe food. Throw away perishables like meat, poultry, fish, eggs, and leftovers stored above 40 degrees Fahrenheit for 2 hours or more. Throw away food with an unusual odor, color, or texture. Throw away food that may have come in contact with floodwater, including food in swollen, punctured, and damaged cans. When in doubt, throw it out.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
Pools, water parks, and other recreational water venues are popular places to relax and stay cool, but they can be sources of serious illness. Since 2000, nearly 500 outbreaks have been reported at recreational water venues in the U.S., resulting in over 27,000 illnesses and 8 deaths. Most were caused by parasites, bacteria, viruses, or certain chemicals in the water. Parents with young children who have diarrhea should not allow their children to swim or play in the water. In addition, bathers should check the inspection scores of pools and water parks and can conduct mini inspections using test strips before getting in the water. A few simple precautions can allow you to share the fun, not the germs. Thank you for joining us on A Minute of Health with CDC.
For the most accurate health information, visit cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
Hi, I'm Tom Hartman, and since you're listening to netrootsradio.com, show your progressive side and go to the donate button on the bottom of the homepage. It's progressives like you who power Netroots Radio and keep the progressive message beaming everywhere 24 hours a day. Just go to our donate button at the bottom of netrootsradio.com. Thank you for keeping progressive radio at full power.
Senator Joe Manchin, a one-man political steamroller in Washington, is a Democrat, except when he's not, which is most of the time. A multimillionaire West Virginia coal executive, he's the darling of fossil fuel and pipeline lobbyists and beloved by Republican opponents of progressive Democratic policies. Indeed, he's funded by Republican billionaires. But Washington lobbyists and billionaires are not the only source of personal political power that allows him to hold office and block little d Democratic policies that the American majority wants and needs. Back home, Joe has maintained tight authoritarian grip on West Virginia's Democratic Party structure, rigging the rules to put little Joes in each and every party position. In turn, this has long given Boss Manchin control over who gets to run as Democrats for down-ballot elected offices in the Mountain State. Until June 18, that is. That's when a statewide Democratic rebellion that had been organizing for 6 years elected its slate of over 50 candidates to oust the Manchinites on the party executive committee, replacing all but one of the top party officials with grassroots activists. It truly was a diverse, people-run victory. Selena Vickers, a social worker, was chief strategist, and Mike Pushkin, a cab driver, is now the party chair. Danielle Walker, now vice chair of the committee and the first person of color in state history to sit on the party's governing body, summed up the significance of this turnaround. There's a new beacon of light shining down on the government with people energized and ready to strategize with a return to the democratic process. This is Jim Hightower saying, to help bring this kind of progressive reform to your local or state Democratic Party, go to Our Revolution, the one national group working on this fundamental democratic change to the Democratic Party. OurRevolution.com. Howdy-ho, folks. Thanks for tuning in and sharing my weekly commentaries. Also, please join me for a live web show I host every other Tuesday, the Hightower Lowdown Happy Hour at the Chat and Chew Cafe. You can join the action live online as I chat with grassroots leaders and progressive sparklies from around the country. Go to hightowerlowdown.org/chat-and-chew to find out about upcoming guests and watch past episodes. That's hightowerlowdown.org/chat-and-chew.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1918. That was the day that 101 leaders of the Industrial Workers of the World, or Wobblies, were convicted in Chicago federal court. Their alleged crime? Violating the Espionage Act during World War I by calling strikes in war industries and calling for an end to the draft. Those convicted included some of the leading names of the IWW. Big Bill Haywood, Ralph Chaplin, the author of Solidarity Forever, and Ben Fletcher, a black IWW organizer in Louisiana, were all found guilty. More IWW leaders awaited trial in California and Kansas. Federal raids swept up wobbly leaders across the country. In all, more than 2,000 IWW members were arrested during the war. Kennesaw Mountain Landis presided as judge over the Chicago trial. In Chicago, the jury deliberated only a little more than an hour. They found every defendant guilty. Landis sentenced Big Bill Haywood and other top IWW leaders with 20 years in Leavenworth Federal Penitentiary. Ben Fletcher got 5 years. All of the men went to prison, except Haywood, who skipped bail and fled the country. The arrests and convictions were a devastating blow to the IWW. But the union did not completely disappear. New leaders emerged to carry on their mission of one big union. Their headquarters are still located in Chicago. President Calvin Coolidge commuted the sentences of those still in prison in 1923. As for Judge Landis, his action on being tough on so-called Reds earned him a national reputation. And so, in 1920, he became Major League Baseball's first commissioner, a post he would hold for more than 2 decades. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. We always begin, whether from around the world, along the banks of the Rogue River, in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 62 degrees Fahrenheit, though we are expecting some record highs possibly, about 106, which means it could be considerably warmer here at the mothership, though will be partly cloudy and a stray shower or thunderstorm is possible, and I hope if there's lightning, there's some showers to put out any potential conflagration. Please. Winds will be light and variable, and as I mentioned, the heat is going to be near record highs, 106, but it's going to be hotter where I'm at. Mainly cloudy overnight with a stray shower or thunderstorm possible, though the low's not that low. It's expecting in the low 70s, which is not nearly low enough to let the cool in. Winds will be out of the north-northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Partly cloudy skies tomorrow. It will be hot with highs around 100. Winds will be light and variable. Confirmed cases of coronavirus in Jackson County in the southern part of Oregon have not been updated. They could be later today, though. Confirmed cases now stand at, or continue to stand at, 492,084, and the deceased stands at 568. Grass pollen is rated low, though, here in Rogue River proper. And the air quality index is good at 24 parts per million for the region. That's something to talk about and be happy. And the daytime UV index has, though it's in the high range, has come down a notch from 8 to level 7. Looks like barometric pressure is holding steady at 29.93 inches. Visibility is up to 9 miles. And relative humidity is at 78%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. London is 68 degrees with rain and potential disruptions due to thunderstorms. Paris is 80 degrees and partly cloudy with a advisory of potential disruptions due to thunderstorms. Rome is 95 degrees and fair with its own advisory of a potential disruption due to thunderstorms. Kyiv is 81 degrees and mostly cloudy. Kabul is 70 and partly cloudy. Hong Kong is 82 degrees and fair. Tokyo is 76 and cloudy. Sydney, Australia is 55 and clear. San Francisco, California is 56 and partly cloudy with a small craft advisory on the bay for windy conditions. And New York is 75 degrees Fahrenheit and cloudy. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. Eva Dow and Lyric Lee of the Washington Post brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. China's worst heat wave in 6 decades is deepening the economic pain of pandemic lockdowns, with authorities ordering factories this week to suspend production in several major manufacturing regions to conserve electricity. Sichuan province, home to more than 80 million people, announced that factories in 19 cities and prefectures would halt operations until this Saturday to reserve electricity for use by the people. Fierce heat waves like this summer's are expected to become increasingly common in China as climate change worsens. China, the world's largest emitter of carbon dioxide, has sought to present itself as a global leader on climate action, touting its shift toward electric vehicles and other measures, but the country has continued to build new coal-fired power plants. This month, Beijing suspended bilateral climate talks with the United States in retaliation for House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's trip to Taiwan. The factory suspensions reflect how climate change is intensifying China's economic challenges. Officials have warned that the country is likely to miss its 5.5% growth target for the year.
Je te donne c'est mon amour pour la vie entière, la promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle, c'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer, mes automnes quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers.
Anonymous staff at the Associated Press, and who can blame them, bring us this final amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Russia's defense ministry warned Britain against a planned spy plane flight over Russian territory, saying the country's Air Force has been given orders to prevent an intrusion. The tough statement comes amid tensions between Russia and the West over Moscow's action in Ukraine. The ministry said that Britain has sent notice informing about a planned flight of an RC-135 reconnaissance plane along a route that partly passes over Russian territory. We regard this action as a deliberate provocation, the ministry said, adding that the Russian Air Force has been given the task to prevent the violation of the Russian border. All possible consequences of this deliberate provocation will lie entirely with the British side, the ministry said in a statement, without specifying when and where the British flight was planned. Rattling a few sabers. Well, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day, but you do know Netroots Radio broadcasts on, and we will meet up here tomorrow for Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks, and we will meet up here tomorrow, right here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. À fleurs sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goer. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme aux langues de golfe clair. T'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.